Hello, welcome back into European Masters. I'm Mad Magical, joined in by the one, the only, the beautiful voice, Yamato Cannon himself. It's great being here, and I am so ready to start talking about some League of Legends action. We gotta start it off with eSuba versus Fnatic Rising.
I'm super excited too. I'm excited to get to work with you, Mad Magical. We were just talking before the show. This man has been working with C9, doing that stuff, casting, and now he gets to be on the big stage on Neo Masters. I'm excited. He's also an Arnold Schwarzenegger fan. That makes me super hyped too. We are aligning on many things. That's a key thing right there, being an Arnold Schwarzenegger fan.
Hey, I think everyone can appreciate Arnold Schwarzenegger and all the movies that he's done, but we gotta talk about what we have at hand. The action in front of us. I already mentioned it before. It's eSuba versus Fnatic Rising. You got the stars out of the UK scene. They didn't start off the season so hot, but they were able to get a reverse sweep over BTXL to get the #1 seed. And now they take on eSuba out of the Czech Republic, who made it through the play-ins and are looking to continue their meteoric rise.
Honestly, Fnatic Rising, you told me their story about how they made a comeback, a reverse sweep. Those stories are always sweet and juicy. eSuba is also an organization that I remember, back in my days I was playing against them, so they have a lot of history because a lot of Czech players that we know in the LEC come from eSuba. Humanoid played there, Patrick played there, and they were always like the big organization back in the Czech Republic because it is a relatively small country, but they have produced some key players.
I think that's what's so impressive, is that you have a small population out of Czech Republic, yet they continue to produce such amazing talent, and this is a great stage for them to be able to prove it up against Fnatic Rising, the team that has been rising, living up to their name. But looking at the bans so far, not too surprised to see some of them. Ziggs and Senna have been pretty hot in the meta, but the Taric banned right at the boy Bravado over there in support. He loves his Taric, but unfortunately not going to get it today.
It's funny how some of the one tricks kind of show up. Taric is a one trick, and then we see the standard bans. We saw Trash ban in the Fnatic versus G2 series, a key ban to make Aphelios a bit worse. We see Aphelios being open, but it seems like eSuba is not making the Fnatic mistake of looking in Aphelios right away because we know it can't get countered. And I'm curious as to how the draft progresses because, as you mentioned, the Taric one trick, there are players with unique things and unique kind of things that they want to go for. I'm expected Azir prio, Yuumi prio, because teams on the lower level don't tend to snowball as good as the higher level teams.
I kind of agree with you on that one, and we've been seeing how dominant Ezreal and Yuumi lane can be once it gets to that mid-game. Start scaling up pretty heavily, get yourself that Muramana, then you start exploding with that additional damage you get with Yuumi being attached to you. But we're seeing more of the top side of the map focused with Renekton and Azir. Azir getting locked in this early would have been surprising had it not been for the play-ins before, where we saw Azir really shooting up there in priority, and all these teams heavily focusing onto that champion, trying to make sure that they could get their hands onto him.
I think Azir is just such a stable champion. I think you can rarely go wrong. I think the way draft goes, usually if you want to counter him, you want to pick a lot of poke, you want to go Ezreal, you want to go maybe Xerath, Vel'Koz, but this is something people don't play. So Azir lock-in is great. I think it is good for the composition, and we see right away that eSuba is going for the Akali, which means the mid lane matchup has to be explosive for eSuba, otherwise Azir is going to take over the game later.
Exactly. Though we did get to see Lighter just in the game before play that Akali very well and pretty much pop off against a Cassiopeia. Has to do that against MagiFelix, Azir, and MagiFelix loves to play these control mages, loves to be able to scale up into the game, try to take over. That's how a lot of the times Fnatic Rising have been able to win. But right now, with the fact that they have decided to go for that Akali, I kind of want to see how you think of this matchup, and where do you think is going to be the power that maybe eSuba can exert on that Akali?
I think the key thing is just how the junglers function, because the way Akali wants to play it, most of the time she needs to survive to later levels, and then eventually when she gets 6, she just wants to keep all-inning on that ult cooldown. Whatever you get out of the ult cooldown is so important because you need to get those presence of mind stacks in order to get a bigger energy bar.
Right.
If you begin to use your ultimate and you don't get any value out of it, Akali falls behind in the game and she's no longer that threat that is going to be so dangerous in terms of one-shotting your AD or causing a lot of pressure in the fight. If she falls behind, things get rough, and Azir is going to take over the game with a Mercury, and then of course the ultimate to deny Akali later in the fight. So it's all about the snowball past level 6. Azir, of course, he wants to stick around in the mid lane, but the key thing is Renekton is going to be the one matching Akali, so it depends what kind of top laner eSuba picks if Renekton can just stack full MR in order to win side against Akali later too, because Azir will want to hang around the mid lane.
So Oh, there it is. The Ezreal pretty much getting a hovered and locked in.
Yuumi's not bad
I was
as well.
just about to say, we see a Misfortune and a Varus ban, but not the Ezreal. We were just talking about how Ezreal Yuumi can be very powerful into Aphelios. I feel like eSuba kind of fell into the trap and gave this power over to Fnatic Rising.
Yeah, from the get-go, you know, this just puts eSuba in a position where their composition is on a clock. Usually when you have an Aphelios that pops off and takes over the game, is usually with the trash, maybe with the Tamken sometimes, where a composition that can peel for him. But now with the Ezreal, Yuumi, Azir, it puts the responsibility in eSuba's hands in order to kind of snowball the game and put themselves in a position where they can force the fights. That mid tower, taking that down with the early Rift Herald is going to be super, super key. Because if that's open for Azir and Ezreal post 20 minutes, they can easily dictate how the game is going to go.
And looking at eSuba, it does seem that they have a pretty volatile composition. It is going to be that Sett support that we've been seeing. It could be Maokai support. I was thinking for a minute, maybe. We have seen that in a couple of the regions, but more likely than not, it's going to be Sett support paired up with Aphelios. And I just don't know how this is going to be able to deal with past that 15-20 minute mark into Fnatic Rising. Unless they can get ahead. They have Sylas who can do some stuff. You have Akali, of course, who can be able to get the assassinations if you want to have that. It just doesn't feel like they have this answer if they don't manage to start snowballing right out like at that 10 to 15 minute mark.
Yeah, it's also the Sylas lock-in is something that we see occasionally. I saw it play jungle in the LPL. Some players enjoy it. We saw it top lane a couple of games too. Most likely is going to go jungle this game. The key thing when you lock Sylas, you want to look at the ultimates that you have on the other side. And I'm not getting too excited by the ultimates I see. I think Ezreal ult is nice, Azir's ult is nice, but it's not like super, super premium like an Echo ult or some other ultimates that I can't think of right now. That's why I'm surprised by this lock-in. Maybe Jejky is gonna, Malphite ult. I've seen Tryndamere ult Sylas. That one is really, really rough because with the healing and being unkillable for 6 seconds is quite disgusting.
Yeah, I can imagine that one would be kind of annoying, but you're right. I just didn't see anything that really stood out to me and made the Sylas seem so much more impactful going into this game. I mean, had there been Echo, I think that would have been the choice for Jejky instead, but it was banned away. And even though Jejky has been very proficient on that Echo jungle, played it time and time again, maybe the Sylas fits into that same wheelhouse and kind of gives Jejky a similar vibe when playing that champion. Do you kind of agree with that?
I think, you know, the key thing is, you know, how will the early game look like? Like Rek'Sai is a champion that can cover up for a lot of flaws that some lanes have. But now Renekton has a good matchup. Ezreal Yuumi into Sett Aphelios. I think Sett Aphelios does indeed have prio. But I think what it will come down to is someone is pulling my mouse, so I can't choose the right feed. So you have to hang on with me.
Oh, your cat's getting in the way. Wait, is it Yuumi? You're getting ganked by Yuumi. That's what it is right now. Unfortunate.
Exactly.
Unfortunate. It's okay though. I'll kind of go through things so that way you don't have to worry about it. And if Yuumi ends up leaving your lane, you just let me know and we'll have that all taken care of. But looking at how things are at the moment, it just seems pretty standard. Nothing out of the norm. Going for typical kind of item builds. Looking at Pride and Robocop in that top lane, you have Doran's Shield, Doran's Blade, where all Maokai really wants to do is be able to survive that matchup into Renekton. Doesn't really want to ever get into a full-on fight, which kind of contradicts what eSuba did with the other parts of the map. Pretty much every other lane feels like they want to try to get ahead. They want to be able to snowball, and now that I'm thinking about it, maybe that's the idea Robocop had here. Like, hey, we have to have one lane that's like a fallback.
The tricky thing is just if you look at the top side of eSuba is the fact that they are so magic damage heavy, so the itemization for MagiFelix, Dany and Pride is going to be so easy. You pick up the Mercury, you get so much value against a Maokai and Sylas, and if you don't get any action going for yourself early on, you're going to definitely lose the 2v2s, the 3v3s that happen on top side. And Fnatic have this bot lane that is going to be relatively safe, that are going to scale super, super well. The key thing if you want to break this apart is you want to use your Maokai TP or Akali TP into bottom, but I do believe the Fnatic have a stronger top side, and if they can take control of the top side, I think they're going to be very, very happy and move into the game.
Rufus wanted to go and punch xMatty, but unfortunately got punched back pretty bad. Has to fall back a little bit, try to heal up, utilizing that Relic Shield passive to get some stacks back, but man, that was brutal. Just went and got one auto attack onto Ezreal, and this is what happens into the Ezreal Yuumi lane. It's so safe. You think that you have the level. You got the level advantage. And so you felt like that was the time to actually exert your pressure. You just can't, though.
As always, I think it breeds, frustration within players when they play against Ezreal Yuumi. You see these projectiles flying at you, do 50 damage, but it's more about the psychological warfare.
Yeah, so you go lethality Yuumi, right? Psychological warfare. No? No? Oh, maybe, I'll have to go back to the drawing board on that then.
You're the mad magical, so you tell me.
I've done it once. It doesn't work very well, but now, right? Jejky, gotta be careful. Dan wants to be able to steal away some of those wolves. Doesn't actually get the unburrow knockup that he would have liked to onto Jejky because he already cleared up the entire top side of the map. Is able to now go towards his own chickens, be able to eat those and see what else he can get. It will be about this trade of scuttle crabs. Each side going to be even. Dan is going to be able to get the top side. That works very well for what Fnatic Rising want to be able to do since they have that power. They have Renekton. Even this Azir into Akali is going to be able to constantly push in random, so you're never going to have that rotation, that power that has been helping out eSuba throughout this entire season, throughout the play-ins as well, where random and Jejky team up together and find a play.
It's going to be difficult as Rek'Sai is so strong in the early game. I'm expecting that Jejky just wants to make sure that he stays even, which he did a good job of. He took the smite of the wolf and then went for the invade, got the double crab, like the crab trade as you mentioned. If he manages to reach level 6 and they can catch maybe an Azir in a combination together with Akali, because they have the tools to get onto an Azir and CC chain him and then just commit to him, then maybe they can create a snowball and do exactly as you mentioned, take over the game through the mid 2v2. But if Azir begins to buy an old magic mantle, Mercury, it'll get harder and harder.
And unfortunately for Random right now, falling further and further behind in CS, already down about 10, pretty much stabilizing at that average. MagiFelix is always going to be able to pressure Random anytime he wants to go up. That cannon right there, oh, he wants to be able to get it. Shuriken flip does help him out. Just barely was he able to get that. I was like, oh, you lose that, you lose so much gold, and it would feel even worse for Random.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's worth to note that on paper, Fnatic, of course, huge favorites in this one. We have some classic names that people know of. MagiFelix always dominating solo queue. Now hopefully wanting to transfer that to all the way to the finals in the EU Masters. eSuba have some history in them as well. But Fnatic is an organization with a lot of prestige, and they have a very, very high expectations coming into this match, and every game matters so much because they only play 3 games in the group stage.
Exactly. You lose one game, and that could actually be the end of it right there. It might end up being a bunch of ties where you have to play a tiebreaker, and that could ruin your trips to go further into the knockout stage, maybe even take it all and win it. Same goes for eSuba, though. They look like a team that, sure, on paper, people are kind of like, I don't know how they're going to be able to do, but they were able to win out in plans despite the fact that they actually finished second in their group and then went and got the victory over the number 1 seed out, the number 2 seed out of Italy, I believe. So they were able to upset where they had gotten Raccoon, the team that they were able to beat, had gotten the number 1 seed in their group, and yet they still lost to eSuba, who pulled the miracle out. They were able to show up on the day. They got the 2-1 victory, got out of the play-ins, and now want to see if they can do the best they've ever done in European Masters. Each time they have made an appearance, they've done slightly better. Their first time, they went 0-3. The second time, they went 1-2. So maybe this time, they can go 2-1, get out of the groups? Yeah, Yamada?
I hope so. I hope so for their sake. Those type of losses, that kind of experience definitely builds character. We mentioned before with Fnatic getting a reverse sweep, and now you're telling me about the story of eSuba. Those type of situation you put yourself in always build character, and when push comes to shove, all that experience definitely matters, especially when you're in that game that is going to define whole EU Masters. When you're in that third game of group stage and all of a sudden you're playing if you're going to stay in the tournament or not, that's when everything kind of builds up and the experience begins to truly matter.
With the TP used by xMatty, going to be able to secure the first dragon, first objective of the game, Cloud Dragon. Going over to Fnatic Rising, going to be a little nice for them. Get a bit more cooldown reduction on those ultimates, especially for Bravado on Yuumi. While a lot of people might not necessarily like the cat, final chapter, definitely a useful tool, especially on someone like Ezreal, to be able to escape from any danger, to be able to get out of dodge. Plus, xMatty already having that.
Is it called Final Chapter? It's called Final Chapter?
Yeah, I believe so.
I wonder if Yuumi is a liar because we have a lost chapter. So maybe that's the real final chapter.
Oh, maybe. Oh, you might be right. But wouldn't that be an epilogue at that point?
Maybe.
Yeah, it could be just, or is it a prologue? We don't know what chapter it is.
I wouldn't be surprised if Yumi's a liar, man.
I wouldn't. I mean, she's a cat. I don't even think she can read.
Well, she's sitting on a book.
Right.
So
Just
maybe not.
because she's sitting on the book doesn't mean she could read the book. It's just
That's true.
she's using the book to actually do a lot of the work, if you think about it. Like, if you look at her lore, the book takes her places, and she kind of is just along for the ride. Really, it should be called Book. The champion club should be called Book, kind of like Nunu and Willump. It should just be called Willump, because Willump's doing all the work.
Okay. I think that makes super sense. That makes a lot of sense. We just call it Book from now on.
I like it. No longer the cat, it's just the book, but going back into the game, it looks like Fnatic Rising going to be able to get themselves their second objective, but of course, eSuba don't want to let this go down too easily. They have been pretty dominant in getting themselves objectives every other time, and now it actually might be a fight.
Maokai no TP though. This is a 4v5. eSuba needs to be careful.
And Jejky took a little bit too much damage from xMatty. They might have to peel back. That's exactly what they're going to do. Realize that they cannot get Robocop to be able to back up them, and they have to back up themselves, go push out some of these waves. They might be able to get at least the consolation prize of some turret plating in the bot lane. But putting that onto Maokai, getting the extra gold that you'd probably rather put onto someone like Dany or Random, is really just that, a consolation prize.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's very impressive how Fnatic managed to, play the standard clean macro game when it comes down to, the first dragon, doing the rotation into Rift Herald. These are the things that is always going to work for you, especially when you have, the importance of every single game. You just stick to the basics. Fnatic getting away with this when they have the Ezreal Yuumi is super key. We have a gank on Robocop.
Robocop trying to get the root, got a lot of damage over onto Pride, but he gets knocked up into the air himself and is spun around, bitten into. First blood goes over to Pride. Gonna feel very nice with that Renekton getting that early kill.
It's super important getting close to that Blade Ruin King. It might create a snowball onto the Maokai. Maokai did indeed keep flash. We see many situations where people and players are dead, but they use their flash anyway for no apparent reason. And this time around we saw some restraint from Robocop. Maybe he got a bit too greedy after getting those turret platings.
Indeed he did. It had some vision, thought that was enough, but it is Rek'Sai. She can easily burrow her way anywhere she wants on the map, and did just that, and that's why I think Robocop noticed on that control ward you could see there in the tri-bush, and said, you know what, better to just delay them a little bit, not burn any of my summoners, because I'm not going to be able to get out of this.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking now on the mid lane, we have the Sorcerer Shoes, we have the Mercury. It's such a key thing when you get to play these champions and you always have to question yourself, am I going to be weaker because I buy MR? But in this case, he just doesn't get weaker, so MagiFelix is very happy in this matchup, especially because Akali is running TP.
Exactly, you're not really too threatened by that matchup, not really having to worry about her assassinating, especially because you've already been winning. Now in the top lane, it is going to be Shelly making her appearance. A lot of damage on Dany, though, underneath the turret. Has to back away, possibly. There could be the dive threatened. Now that Shelly's going to be able to take some of the turret plating, get a lot of that gold over onto Matty, as he is already sitting on the Sheen and Tier of the Goddess. Getting that much closer to that Muramana, the power spike that this Ezreal is going to be able to exert onto the map. This is pretty much what we feared for eSuba, is if Azir and Ezreal can scale up.
It's just, there's a ticking time bomb just ticking away. eSuba need to show us some aggression. We need to see them start using their ultimates because they're just holding on to their abilities. They need to try to force things because the longer and longer this goes, the more difficult it will be for them. Usually you would think that a champion like Renekton doesn't scale too well, but this is a very unique scenario where he gets to bruise it up with 4 other bruisers. Oh, here we go.
They're looking for the pick on the Random, getting a lot of damage. The flash knock up takes the bite out of her as well. It's going to be a kill over to Dan. Second one of the game for Fnatic, and this is just looking worse and worse for eSuba each moment that passes.
The only opportunity I'm beginning to see now is if Robocop can use his TP to create some kind of flank advantage because there's no cleanse on some of these Fnatic players, but if Fnatic keep the discipline, keep taking the Drakes. They can rely on their composition to take it home. I want to see action from eSuba.
Exactly, I agree. That's how they're going to be able to come back into this game and take victory, is if they start playing more proactively. We aren't seeing that out of them, unfortunately. They've been just delaying, and now Dany having his back stop. Oh, they don't go for the full aggression, thinking that maybe Rufus was nearby and possibly was going to be able to pressure back, but this is just starting to look a little bit worrisome for eSuba. For a while, Dany's been sitting on that Executioner's Calling as well on Aphelios, trying to deal with the healing Bravado can provide onto Ezreal, but when you have to buy that this early on as Aphelios, not only do you hinder a lot of your damage output, but you just are forfeiting that lane.
Yeah, the key thing, you know, the way everyone needs to think about Grievous Wound, you make a wonderful point there, is usually when you buy Grievous Wound and you're buying it for only one specific champion, you don't get that much value. It's a similar conversation as Mercury in terms of Azir buying it, having value against 3 champions with the Mercury because of the magic resistance and so forth. The same way Grievous Wounds function. This is a game where you have decent value because of Renekton and Yuumi, but it's something that is very interesting to pay close attention to because it's 800 Gs into an item that you use for laning. If you only have one specific champion that does heal, then it doesn't give as much value, similar to in some cases where armor doesn't give you value, MR doesn't give you value. It's a good way to view it when you're playing your solo queue matches and you're looking to completely, you know, create efficiency in your itemization.
And we get to see the gold and where it's spread out. It is favoring the side of Fnatic. We're not too surprised, but a lot of that being onto Pride, this Renekton. Possibly could use the TP to make a play, but it's going to be the flash in from Rufus, getting a little bit of damage back onto Dan, but Rufus will be able to throw back the Haymaker, barely going to be able to survive, trying to get away, but Pride not going to let him get out today. There's going to be the kill onto the xMatty. Random is so low, though, himself, and behind is MagiFelix. Great use of Emperor's Divide to be able to get a lot of damage, but he's in a bad spot now. 3 members of eSuba Strong will be able to make him fall. A double kill for Jejky, and that is eSuba playing in the matchup right and reading the play, an overextension out of Fnatic Rising.
I'm really happy that they decided to finally pull the trigger. They have a lot of champions that are very explosive, very good at all-laning. They got the Sett, they have the Sylas, they have the Akali. These are champions that want to use their ultimates, they want to all-in, and this is where Fnatic kind of relaxed a bit too much.
Exactly.
Because in the end, their composition is a composition that wants to kite. If they get caught in these battles, in these frays, so to speak, eSuba can definitely get ahead. And this was very, very positive. Now with the summoners burnt on Ezreal Yuumi, they can become a target because Akali has the TP. Let's see again the replay. Dan going for the aggressive play, spots him.
He sees them, sees like he could go for Rufus, but I actually got to give a lot of respect to Rufus here, reading this and saying, you know what, Azir doesn't have TP, we can force a fight.
That was a good call. He finally finds a catch, and this is what you want to see. I was worried that eSuba was kind of getting stage fright, and they were not forcing any fights. Ezreal dies very quickly. Bravado keeps himself alive by jumping off the Ezreal. Azir commits very, very deep into the fight, but Azir doesn't have that much damage at this point in time, especially because he goes for that Lost Chapter. He has a Lost Chapter, that Stinger. Doesn't have the finished Nashor's Tooth. I am not a Lost Chapter fan. I'm not a Luden Zeko fan. I'm a big Halo Blades fan, but I'm not a Lost Chapter fan at all. I don't think you need the mana necessarily. I think you can get along just fine with Presence of Mind and sometimes even, what's it called? The blue thing in Sorcery Tree. Help me out. You know, the ring. Mana Flow Band.
Oh, there you go. I was trying to remember myself. I was like, which one are you talking about? Mana Flow Band. I mean, it's not as good as it used to be back when they first got it. Ooh, but now the jump onto Random, taking a lot of damage, but it is able to escape from a little bit. Tries to shuriken flip, will be able to escape the clutches of Fnatic. Well, they kind of back out. Not going to be collapsed on, though, by the rest of eSuba. Instead, making the call say, there are 3 members in the bot lane. We can pressure mid. We have Rift Herald.
This is going to be so key if they actually get the turret, because it's Ezreal and Azir as champions rely on this space to not get flanked, and with eSuba's champions, if Maokai and Akali is in fog of war, you have to respect so much and you gotta back up. eSuba might even continue because there's no reaction from Fnatic.
I was about to say, where are they? Hello? Your mid lane's kind of dying. That was not the best call coming in from Fnatic Rising, but eSuba going to be able to capitalize off of that immensely. They struggled a bit there in the the early game, but this mid game is definitely starting to look a lot more favoritism. They're finally being proactive, and that's the second time that they were able to catch Fnatic overextended in one lane. get something on the map, and if they can catch MagiFelix right here, if they can get him before he's able to recall, that could be massive. The chains will grab onto MagiFelix, who tries to push them all away. He does Emperor Divide and get out of there for now, but Robocop is on the other side. Not going to be able to get the Twisted Advance. Was able to use the roots, though. They're going to be able to get the slow flash away. The rest of Fnatic Rising are here to help him escape. He will survive for now, but that's a lot burned out of MagiFelix just to be able to escape, and I'm surprised it's not an immediate turn onto that Mountain Dragon.
Yeah, the key thing here is that MagiFelix is very low. He has TP, can be ready for this fight if they want to go for it, but I think Fnatic, once again, they're not in any rush. eSuba is wasting a lot of CS in order to chase him around, but we have a fight anyway.
Yeah, Rufus on the other side could use the Haymaker shield to be able to survive. Dan taking a lot of damage, barely going to be able to get away from there. He's limping, but look at how low eSuba are. They have to flash over the wall. The kill goes over to xMatty, looking for random as well. The auto attack's going to be able to get the double kill for xMatty with Dragon down below 50%. Jejky so low himself. True Shot Barrage does not reign true today, but Jejky will die anyways to Pride. Looking for the rest of the members. Fnatic Rising will be able to rise out of their own ashes. The mid game didn't go well, but the ace is still theirs, and it is clean.
The fight here was so different from the previous one. Now they get the third dragon. Lining up for that Soul Mountain Drake is going to be huge for the later fights, because we've mentioned already that the composition scales better. But the key difference here in comparison to the previous fight is that Renekton and Rek'Sai are the ones on the front line. They are the ones taking damage. MagiFelix full HP, and Renekton gets a clean combo there. Matty gets to poke. They get to survive long in this fight. eSuba burns all of their abilities onto that Rek'Sai. He survived, and that just spells doom for them in this one.
And honestly, just looking at how this fight was to begin with, they had forced away MagiFelix. He was able to back TP into the fight, full health, having bought a couple items as well. All the while, Dragon still wasn't taken by eSuba. Not only do they lose the fight massively, they don't even get the objective that they had initially sought to receive.
So I want to play a game with you, Magical.
All right, what is
so right now, honestly, you know, we've been in these scenarios before. Everyone's been in solo queue games. 20 minutes in, you're 5k gold behind. Enemy has 3 dragons. Enemy has Ezreal, Yuumi. Dany's dying on the mid lane at the same time.
Really able to survive.
Oh,
wait a minute.
okay.
Rufus actually may be able to help him turn around. He's going to be able to get the heal. That's going to be the showstopper, stopping the show of xMatty and getting the shutdown over to Random. Bravado will be able to escape on the back of Dan. Rufus, though, might want to see if he can at least get a ward and keep away Dan so they can possibly put more vision around that Baron.
So the game I wanted to play with you was, think of something magical that eSuba need to do in order to win. If Ezreal's going to get caught in mid lane, that's definitely a way.
I think that's a good one, but unfortunately it looks like Rufus might get himself caught out as well. Getting to use the Haymaker, the shield is only going to last for so long. There's the ult coming in from Dan to execute Rufus, and so even though it was a nice catch on the xMatty before, Rufus dying means that they don't have that advantage anymore.
I have to make sure now that Fnatic don't lose their cool, because if they lose a Nashor or something like that, you know, then maybe the game might be slightly harder, but maybe I'm being too optimistic because their composition looks so nasty at this point in time, and they have 3 Drakes.
Exactly, 3 dragons, 1 more. They'll be able to have the Mountain Soul, so not only are they going to be doing a lot of damage, they're going to be that much tankier as an entire squad. And looking at how eSuba are, they do output a lot of damage, but they had to snowball in order to do that, and they sadly haven't been able to get that snowball that they wanted to. They had a great couple fights and were able to get some objectives off the back of mistakes out of Fnatic, but Fnatic then getting that clean ace, they didn't lose a single member. They got control right back of the Rift.
At least eSuba, they're taking control of the Drake. They know that everything is going to reach the breaking point here on the next Drake fight. Make sure they have good vision, make sure they have flank for the TPs, because if they can lock down one target, one-shot that one, then some of the Renekton, the Maokai and the Sylas, they get pretty tricky to kill, because there's no grievous wounds on the other side, and if they get to survive in the fights, it does get harder, but they need to one-shot someone. But it's so unbelievably difficult against the Yuumi and so much Mercury value.
Exactly, and that's right now seeming like eSuba are just trying to see what they can force. If they can get a catch onto Fnatic like they did before on xMatty, maybe that's where they say, you know what, even if you have the resistances, even if you get like Mercurial Scimitar, you're not really going to be able to escape from all 5 members who are going to be able to jump onto you. This is what Jejky seems to want to do in the spot lane. MagiFelix trying to defend this outer turret. It could be the dive.
Okay.
Nope.
No dive.
No dive,
Boring.
unfortunately. Wait, oh, no, is it gonna be? It's yes or no? It's hot or cold? I'm not sure. I can't tell from Jejky.
He's just gotta steal the Azir ult and push him away and hope he doesn't react. He has a little moment to flash Dany.
Oh, but they're losing out in the mid lane. Rufus yet again trying to see if he can turn it around. Showstopper dies in the midst of it. They do get the kill in the bot lane on a MagiFelix and a nice dive. It's a trade though. 1 for 1. It is an Azir for Sett, so might be more worthwhile, but this mid-tier 1 definitely not gonna be.
So eSuba managed twice now to do a good move, but then right after, Sett manages to die, so Rufus needs to chill a bit, because the play onto bottom, I respected it, the dive onto the Azir, there was a little window there when he had no flash. We wanted it to happen sooner, but they waited for the Shuriken to land. As we can see, Azir doesn't have flash yet. It kind of gave me flashbacks to that Phoenix play that he did when he was on Team Liquid, when he got the quarter kill under the turret. This wasn't it, because these champions just had an easy time getting onto, of course, the Azir, the Maokai, the Sylas. They have a lot of gap closers, so it's a tricky one to pull off. What MagiFelix went for the outplay, couldn't succeed. It was just too hard.
It was very close, though, onto Jejky, so maybe next time he's going to be able to get it. But Dany, every single time he steps up, takes so much damage, and Jejky has to go golden to be able to survive. MagiFelix is going to be able to jump him into the back line as Jejky trying to heal up, utilizing the chickens for now, but he dies in the midst of it. Golden is MagiFelix on the other side. Random will at least get 1 kill for eSuba, so it's not going to be a clean ace this time, but xMatty still fighting. 1v1, he gets the kill on Akali, all the while Robocop underneath this tier 2 turret. He can't really fight back. He's being bounced around. They could give the kill over to xMatty, but they didn't. They just get the ace instead.
Fnatic now having a very, very easy game in front of them. They are just getting stronger and stronger, scaling more and more, and the mountain that eSuba needs to climb is just getting bigger and bigger. It's looking quite dark for eSuba in this one.
It really is, and I want to try to see what they could possibly do, but with this Mountain Dragon going over to Fnatic Rising, it's going to be that much more difficult. But looking at this, like I mentioned, Dany, every time he steps up, takes so much damage.
Yeah, he's just getting smacked. And look at MagiFelix, how he kind of goes into him there. He just spots him, clinically removes him. Jejky also dies. The key thing is there's so many items that eSuba need to buy, so there's no grievous wounds. So this Renekton, as long as they don't punch the Maokai, then they're good. The Yuumi is also healing so much, because the only thing that's going on is a Bramble Vest. But of course, if at this point in time they begin to like buy Morello or something, it's so inefficient because there's so much magic resistance already. It's just a tricky situation for eSuba because everything is stacked against them. They're doing some magic here though.
Yeah, they are trying to see if they can do magic on a MagiFelix, who's cut away from the rest of the team, but Dan's going to be able to show up just in time. Did a lot of damage onto Jejky, used Emperor to survive, but it's not going to really help him when he already is dead. Going into the backline, dying everyone around. No one's left except for Robocop into that fight. Helping. That just does not work that way. You're alone, Maokai. Sure, you get the kill on the MagiFelix. That is going to be Baron, and that is more than likely going to be game for Fnatic Rising.
They can look to end. Maybe the death time is 20 seconds? No, I think they are too far away from the mid wave.
Not going to be able to end off of this, but this is just looking insurmountable for eSuba.
For sure.
You mentioned that it's going to take some sort of magic for them to be able to come back into this game, but this right here was praying for a miracle, if you ask me.
At least they're trying something, right? They're not just, dying slowly in a poke situation. They're looking for that force. They spot out MagiFelix, but Fnatic are quick to react, and MagiFelix is playing it patiently. Maddie is fighting Akali on the top side, and the fight is easy. Azir manages to die, but it's not enough. I loved how the Nash was helping Fnatic too. It was just hitting the Maokai, hitting the Sett.
Well, giving it when it used
like
that
they needed a 6th member.
It had that one ability that it used to when it spat out, and that reduces the resistances of tanks too. So Maokai, not even as tanky as he thought he was going into that, Robocop's like, oh, why am I suddenly squishy?
Oh, another one.
Talk about being squishy. Rufus realizing he has to go golden to be able to survive, but unfortunately he's right in the midst of danger. Bravado finally getting a kill. 1-0 and 17 on the book. Doing so well, and they can continue this fight. Looking for the hunt, looking for the chase into the backline, pushing eSuba back into their own base. really it's not looking too well, even though xMatty gets jumped on by random. Look at the damage that comes in from him. He's on a killing spree with Dany. Next to fall, easily torn apart. Jejky gone, only Robocop. This looks all too familiar for eSuba, even though he gives the thumbs up. He knows it's well and not okay, and that is going to be them pushing right into the base. Inhibitor is gone. Next will be the Nexus turrets, and that is going to be Fnatic Rising. Continue to rise up. All started with a reverse sweep back in UK, and looks like they're going to start out this European Masters 1-0 with padding the KDA, the ace to finish it all off.
Lovely performance from Fnatic. They kept cool. I don't think at any point in time that I was worried about them. Good draft as well.
I mean, time out. There was those two good plays that came in from eSuba. You've got to give them some credit.
Sure. That's alright.
So, I mean, looking at how they were, they have some life for eSuba. They definitely can fight back. I just want to see them do that earlier, going in through the rest of European Masters. If they can play like they did, where they had those good picks, that good fight in the top lane, that they then turned into that rotation mid lane, where they got 2 turrets off of one mistake from Fnatic Rising, they could definitely start coming back, and maybe they could pull off, like I said before, they can continue to do better in European Masters, go 2-1. Right now, it's Fnatic Rising, who continue to look like they are the ones on top, #1 seed of UK. But for now, we're going to toss it over to a break, and when we come back, we'll dissect that game just a little bit more.
You've seen our name on the jerseys of amazing teams. Now, we are supporting one more. One that you don't see live on TV. But they are the best team in the world, and they are playing the toughest game. Maybe they're not performing in front of millions, but they are under the pressure of an entire planet. And they don't have fans cheering their names, but they have patience who will forever remember them. And they also need your help to win this game. Stay home like a pro.
Hello and welcome back into European Masters. Magical, joined in again by Yamato Cannon. We're here to break down that last game that we just witnessed, eSuba versus Fnatic Rising, where Fnatic Rising were able to take that game pretty decisively, even though there's this fight right here that showed life out of eSuba, pretty much was always in control of Fnatic.
I think the key thing with the composition that they played was that they needed to burn their ultimates more. They have very, very powerful ones, while Fnatic want to just poke and stall you out, and they were better on the macro sense. I think if they tried to go for these fights, burn their summoners, try to, make something happen earlier at the cost of some CS, I think it would have been worth it. I think the key difference there, though, in comparison to this fight that's going on the screen, is that Fnatic were too far and too deep with their carries, meaning Ezreal and Azir very extended. This time around, all the focus from eSuba went on to Rek'Sai. He survived with so little HP, and then Ezreal and Azir just keep hitting, and they are, of course, going to clean up the fight.
Exactly. When you have everyone there, you actually have your front line where they're supposed to be, front-to-back team fight. That is what we said at the beginning was going to favor Fnatic Rising, and it did just that. Looking at this fight, sure, MagiFelix was caught up, but it just left them exposed. It was overextended from eSuba, where they got punished for it.
This time around, the game was, as we mentioned, with the composition they were facing up against. 20 minutes in against Ezreal, Yuumi, Azir. Most of the time you're going to struggle. That was eSuba trying to pull off some magic, as you mentioned, and they were trying to catch MagiFelix, but MagiFelix had his team to back him up. And that rounds up the group. What do you think so far about Group D?
Looking at Group D, and you definitely have the clear favorites in Fnatic Rising and Mouse Esports. I think that's going to be one of the most exciting games to witness, is when those two juggernauts play against one another. I'm not even sure who I'd favor out of those two to be able to take it, but that's really what this group is. We expect those two to be the ones that make it out, but I want to see something else happen. eSuba, maybe they have life. Maybe if they learn from this game and they go, okay, we have to be more aggressive, use those ultimates a little bit more often, they can take that game off of Mouse.
For sure. I think the key thing always when you review a game like that, you need to also look at the positive. And there was a point in time where they did indeed pull the trigger, and they got some good fruit out of it. And I think if they continue with that trend, maybe they have some potential, but they also need to refine the draft. It was obvious that Fnatic came more prepared. The damage mixes were awkward. Sylas wasn't the best pick, and I think they put themselves in a position where itemization was super difficult because of these things that we mentioned.
All right, and that is going to do it for Group D. We are going to move forward and continue on. I think it's Group C going to be next, so we're going to toss it over to a quick break, and when we come back, it's going to be LDLC taking on Vodafone Giants. Don't go anywhere.